Hello, guys. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recaps and Daily Teachings. Sorry for a late video recap today. A lot was going on today. It was a busy day. Big day for us in the community. And of course, Bitcoin breaking out of over the 100,000. So that was kind of also was a busy evening with there as well. So there's a lot to cover. So I'll try to go fast and I will try to do a quick introduction here, guys. So all these trade recaps and all these teachings are either from my YouTube previous videos or either from X or from mostly from my community. We use a repeatable trading system, Ripster, EMA Cloud, Ripster trading system that thousands of traders across the world use to trade consistently. We trade repeatable setups that I teach and I show you day in, day out. We have repeatable strategies that work consistently with small losers and big winners. Every morning we have a game plan. Me and my team, we create this game plan. As you see, this was today's game plan. I even tweeted out this game plan on Twitter as well for free for my followers. A lot of plays from this game plan really worked. We have earnings, IPOs, market plays, news plays, upgrades, downgrades, everything, and we have a support level, resistance level, and if a game initial buys and initial game plan, and then we follow our system as the market opens. So and we also have something called day 2, day 3 setups. These are our day 2, day 3 strategy plays. Snow, PLTR were one of the main day 2, day 3 plays that really worked out well there. And of course, Roku was another good one, day 2, day 3 setup. And this is a repeatable strategy. I did a free webinar on this, and I teach you guys this in previous YouTube videos on my X. Everywhere I talk about these videos as well. We also provide daily levels. We provide daily levels to trade SPY, QQQ, IWM, Apple, Microsoft, AMD, Netflix, Boeing, Amazon, Meta, Tesla. All these names we provide as well, so that traders can use these levels in the EMA Cloud System to trade them consistently. We trade Bitcoin-related plays every day: Coin, MSTR, CLSK, Mara, Bitcoin. We provide these levels to the traders, so anybody who's interested in trading those Bitcoin plays, they can trade those and make use of the what we provide. The system works on Bitcoin, the system works on all other trading assets. So that's and once we have this game plan, I'm usually on voice first few hours of the market open. So I'm usually on voice at the first few hours of the market open, and I stay on the voice if needed, guiding my community through all these trade ideas and the market analysis and live commentary on the market. Most of our traders in community trade these consistent setups themselves with their guidance. We are not an alert service, but to find success in the financial markets. We have all the tools in our community. We have 3-4 option scanners, stock scanners, news bots, breaking news. We have everything as a one-stop shop for trading. Anyways, I will show you my timestamped comments on all these trade ideas and my guidance and how the community nailed these setups, losers and winners. We discuss everything. Let's start. All right, let's start with the first one is Lulu. So it was a good day to have earning plays. It was a good day to have earning plays on Friday, because there's a lot of these options, Lotto plays that help us out. Anyways, let's see what was the plan on Lulu. The plan was Lulu was pretty simple. Support was 372, resistance was 378, 380, gap fill under 372. 370, long over it. So it was a simple gap and go setup that I teach you every day on other recaps. So if you look at Lulu, we'll take a look here. As soon as I saw at the open that Lulu is breaking out of that pre-market highs, that's when I told everybody it's a long. Lulu is a long it right away. And I also said 400 Lottos are a good Lotto scalps. Lottos are always 100%, guys. Remember that, because you're risking 100% risk to make 300, 400, 500%. That's what the Lottos are all about. You want to make and that 100% can be anything based upon your risk reward, right? If you have $10,000 account, maybe your $200 is your 100% risk. right? If you have $2,000 account, maybe $50 is your 100% risk. Those are the things I teach in risk management webinar on my X, Twitter. I've been teaching that. You know, go back and see the risk management there. Anyways, so the point is, if you're trading a lot of options, you're trying to get multiple 100%. So anyways, you can see that this was right at the open. You had to get long, and it was our number one play. So you have to be ready. Give the game plan in the morning, in the pre-market. Lulu long, 400 first target, 400 lotos went to 100%. Then next target was 405, 4010. Then things started to slow down. We pulled back. There was this midday setup. Remember, when this will happen, I will show you the lotos will lose crazy value pretty fast, right? So you can always make profits, and then you can add some other lotos on these pullbacks. Of course, shares are always good. Next week options are always good. But since we are talking about the lotto options, this is how you trade them. So anyways, so let's look at the lotto. So let's look at the 400 lotto. So the 400 lotto right from the open, from the $2, went all the way to $11. Even if you got $3, $4, that's fine, right? But you have to be ready. If you bought it for $3, let's say you bought it for 300, that we were trading, I was feeling at, then you'd sell at you sell some at 100%, and then you let it work into the 10 a.m. and you see we hit right into the $10. So your $300 became $1,000. You got 3 times how much you put in. So that's what you want to do, right? If you bought $1,000 worth of options, you're risking $1,000, but you're making $4,000, $5,000. So that's how the lotto options really work. So that was a big push, initial push. You can see that Lulu, the lotto options that I mentioned, 400 went on to all the way to $10. Then you pull back. That's fine. You can either use the profits to add back the same lotto, which again went from $6 to $10, or you can do some other lotto. But understand that if the stock doesn't close in that strike price, the lotos will lose the value at the end of the day. And we are not even looking to swing that lotto because it's a Friday, and that's why we're locking our profits and moving on. And then Lulu pushed again higher. So that was my continuous guidance: hold as long as 512 holds. We were looking for the breakout of 410, but we never got that breakout of 410. So we exited everything when it broke the 512s. So if you want to look at the other rolls that you could roll, let's look at 410s. They will lose a lot of value pretty fast. Even when we were bouncing from here, that 410s went from $1 to $2, so 100%. So you get out when it's breaking down. You get out because if it's not closing over 410, you're going to lose all your value. So the point is, in the first big push, let's say you make $4,000, you take 500, 700 out of it, you throw that in your next lotto, and let's if as long as the trend hold, and that lotto $1,000 begin another $1,000, either they go to zero or they double, right? Because it's just a profit. So this is how you trade the lotto options. And Lulu was a great example. Too bad it couldn't run more for us, but we'll talk about Meta and other trades. But Lulu was mainly a morning trade. Beautiful trade for us. The lotos went 400, 500%. Timestamped guidance here, voice guidance right at the open. You can see the pre-market planning, no hindsight, no BS. Beautiful trade. Watch my previous playlist of Lotto Friday as well. Let's talk about DocuSign now. So let's see what was the plan on DocuSign. So DocuSign was another earning plays. The support was 93.60, resistance 9700. The plan on DocuSign was simple: gap fill under 93, long over that. So as you see, DocuSign has been coming off nice base. DocuSign used to trade at 314 back in the COVID days. So it's been curling, right? So it's been curling. The weekly has been bullish before the earnings. It's nightly coming up. So the chart was definitely turning bullish. And important thing to note on DocuSign today was we were pushing our 100 psychological level. So that's always a big number for investors and traders. I discuss that often. So let's see what happened. As soon as the market opened, I see that DocuSign is holding the clouds and it's pushing over these pivot levels, and then it's trying to push over the next pivot level. I told everybody to long it right away at the open, and I told about 100 breakout, because 100 breakout it can push. Look at my timestamp guidance here, 100 breakout, it can push. Next target I gave was 102. Then I told everybody to put the stops break even. And we met our 102 target. And after that, next target I gave was 105. There's no reason to cut, hold. If you are in the Lotto puts, hold your Lotto puts. Or if you are in the shares, hold them because 512 is holding. And once you're profitable in your initial long, remember we were long right from 9800, you take some of your profits out and roll further, right? So you can always throw something into DOCU 105 calls, which were trading at 50 cents, and that went as far as $2.50. And once 105 was broken out, we hit 107, and that was a huge trade. 100 psychological $7 trade. The options went 100 to 200%. So that's a really nice play as well on our Lotto Friday. You can see the timestamp guidance, pre-market planning, no hindsight, no BS, repeatable setup, 100 psychological level, breakout, gap and go over the pre-market highs. Just the amazing setup. All right, next one we're going to look at Meta. Let's see what Meta. So next one we're going to look at is Meta. So what was the levels on the Meta today? 610 was resistance pivot, 610.55. Those were our two resistance pivots. I noticed something this morning that Meta was bouncing over the 1 hour Ripster MTF clouds. You can see that, and it was turning bullish. While the other names, which were not showing the strength, but Meta was showing a lot of strength. There's a lot of flow coming in on Meta, and that's when I told everybody that Meta is a decent name. It's a decent long. I was on the voice. So I was on the voice. I told everybody Meta is a decent long, and of course the levels that I gave in the pre-market, Meta was pushing over those levels. It was pushing on 610, 1655, and it was showing more strength than the other names in the market. So the first target as I gave everybody was 618 and 620, and 618 target met. Then we had 620 target. 620 was our breakout. This was a breakout level. Why was a 620 breakout level? Because 620 was also an 1 hour level right here. It was a daily high there on 620, so that's why I said 620 is our next breakout level, and 620 breakout, and there it goes. And then our next targets were 628 and 630. We hit our 628 target, and I also told everyone to keep some for 630, and they kept it for 630. We almost short 21 cents of 630, but there's a beautiful trade, repeatable setups from Ripster 1 hour clouds, 10 a.m. flag break, 620 breakout, Ripster 512 calls, all the way up. You see stock goes from 612 to 630, your Lotus goes 200, 300%. So this is why you risk 100% on your Lotos, so that you can make 300, 400% like that. So if we look at the option Lotto trades on Meta, once Meta started running, 625 Lottos, they were two out of the money, but at start of the run, 620s were not bad. So if you take the 620s, they ran from since we started to break out on the long side, and I mentioned that they ran from $2 all the way to $5. So that's your 100, 150%, and then you see the pullback here. Around that time. So that was, our pullback. So since this pullback, that's when the 620s were pulling back. That's when you can roll into the 625 Lotos. We can take a look at the 625s. So you see that on that pullback, the 625s, they went from $1 all the way to $5, another 300% there. So this is how you trade these option Lotos. They're always 100% risk, but you can see the timestamp guidance on Meta all the way from the morning guidance to the breakout all the way to 630. Multiple 620, 625 options, a lot of opportunities to take. Even if you trade $1,000, you can easily turn it into $3,000 based upon how you trade these option Lotos, because they're 100% risk. So we just take a look at 620 and 625. It's important to note that since 625 did not close in the money, so they go to zero, right? You see that it goes to zero. So that's very important to understand. That's why you have to be fast to take your profits on these lot of options and not hold them till end of the day if they are not closing in the money. So your first lot of options goes under 100%. You take some profit out, throw it into the second lot of option, and that goes 100, 200%, or it goes to zero. You're fine because you're just using the profit money. So next one we're going to look at is UNH, United Health. United Health was, was one of our day 2, day 3 setups. You can see that one over the day 2, day 3 setups here. United Health 581 support, 582.58 was the resistance. We missed United Health on Thursday, but we were ready for it on Friday, a lot of Friday. The CEO was assassinated, and the stock was giving up due to that. So if you see that 1 hour had turned bearish, daily had turned bearish, you see that they're breaking all the MTF clouds. So it was a bearish trend. So it was an A plus short. As so- as soon as it rejected the clouds, broke under yesterday lows, it was a confirmed short. You can see my timestamp guidance here. I said day to short, CEO got short, all healthcare companies spooked. And I also gave this level at 581. That was this initial short and under the 581, and then the break of this level gives another short. And the first target was 560, and then my final target was 555. So you see that we faded from all the way 580, 575. Some folks were asked me, "Hey, if it's curling," it's not curling. It's just a bounce, and it's rejecting the cloud. That's where you add short again, and it hit my 550 target, and my final target was 540. Didn't meet that. That's fine, but regardless, it was a huge trade. UNH has never traded such a range in long time. That's how the options pay up. If you look at the 250 the 550 lot options, they went from $1 to $9. So that was like 800% move on those lot of options, right? So even if you don't want to go that far away, because it's too far, you can stick with this closer options like 560s or something, which went from $2 to $16, right? So you see that there's a lot of opportunity to have 600, 700, 8% of lot of option trades when there's a setup, there's a news, there's a catalyst. So you risk, because you can't just buy a lot of option and cut it if it's down 50%. That's how it never works. You have to have it. You have to hold it to give you multiple returns, because if you are trying to lose 100%, you have to make 300, 400, 500% or 200% at least. And in this case, UNH was a home run. If you see those options that I talked about, 560s, 550s, the Lottos, they just went crazy. You could easily turn your $1,000 to $5,000, 6,000, but you should be able to risk that $1,000 based upon your account. Maybe if you have a small account, you just risk one lotto. Maybe you just risk 200. That's only allowed by your account, but that 200 you can turn into $1,000. So that's why patience is very important on Lotto Options Friday, and it can really help if you do proper risk reward analysis. You can really grow your account on Lotto Option Friday. Today Friday was a great day. You don't really get that this kind of Lotto Friday much. I showed you Lulu Lotos, Meta Lotos, UNH Lotos. Just a beautiful trade. Let's go to the next one. So let's look at Ulta. So Ulta was, was a gap up and a chop. It did push a little bit. You can see versus 430, the long, but it could never break and hold the pre-market highs. So that trade failed to work, and that's when it failed to work. That's when you decide to get out and stay away from it. It didn't even give the gap fill because there was a support 1, 2, 3, and it was bouncing there and couldn't break out of pre-market highs. Pretty clean price action, but it did tell us to stay away from it. Our pre-market planning on Ulta was neutral bias, only long over the pivots, gap fill under 447, 427, 435, 442, 440. Never convincingly pushed over. I mean, you could have got 10, 15 points if you were fast on it. Let's look at here. When I gave the first Ulta long versus 430, let's look at our 450 or 440 lotos and see how they did. So if I look at the 440 lotos, they pushed from $3 to $10, but you have to, even if you did $5, you took it here, you have to sell it at $10 or $9. Take your 100%, because if you don't, when it breaks, that $5 or $4 are just going to go to $0 because we're closing out of the money. So that was the Ulta. So, and after that there was no trade. There was no trade. Compare this to DOCU, compare this to Lulu, and you can see the personality of Ulta versus those other trades. So even if it doesn't work, that's fine. You lose if your Lotto risk was $200, right? So Here you lose all of those $200 if it doesn't go, doesn't run. Let's say you're buying you're buying 460 lotos, right? Something like that. So you want it to go to 460, so you buy 460 lotos, and for $2, right here you buy it for $2, and it doesn't go, you lose all the $2, you lose your $200. But again, on the other trades, you are trading with 200, but you're making thousands of dollars. So that risk reward is how you do it, right? If you lose it, it's calculated risk that you lose that lotto trade. But if you're making money on UNH, Meta, Lulu, you're making 3 4 times. So that loser doesn't impact anything. You played a game, uh, you know you played the probability or the setup or the lotos, which you already assume the risk of 100%. It doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? So anyways, just wanted to recap how the ULTA was acting uh, there, and why it was no trade after the first failed attempt. There was definitely money made on the first push from the ULTA from 430s, but after that the lotos went to zero, and that's part of the game, and that's how you manage your risk with the lotto options. So next one was our GTLB. Let's look at GTLB. So plan on GTLB was bullish bias to long the pullback 70 to 71 and 75. But as soon as it breaks this level, so GTLB becomes a grab and crap setup that I have covered so far, and MTF is always your first target, and that's how we did it in the community. It was a gap and crab setup on GTLB. So it was a gap and crab setup on GTLB for us. So let's go to the next one. So next one was ASN for us. ASN was our game plan long today. Let's look at the plan and the community today. ASN breakout over 20, watch the pullback. So I already told everyone that there's a breakout over 20 on ASN. So let's see what happened there. So you see that when this breaks out of this 20, that's a breakout, and then you elongate, you see that the bounce on that MTF clouds. So this is just as per the system that confirms the long. You take the long, and ASN ran all day up. So that was not a bad trade on ASN. Long setup in the community. So let's see if we can look at some of the calls. We can check how the 20 calls work down on that long setup for the lot of option traders. Of course, you can always trade. You can always trade shares, but today it's just option Friday special, so that's why I'm trying to show you that. So if you took a lotos on 20s on ASN, that went from 40 cents all the way to $2. So that were the that was easy setup. Let's say your small account, you buy $50, you make it $200. And if you have a bigger account, that's fine. You buy $1,000 worth of lot options. You make grand on that. So you just have to be patient. You have to respect the system. You can't panic. You can't cut your lot of options. Of course, take your initial investment out when you see the pullback, but you have to respect the EMA cloud system to make sure your lot of options are paying you well. So the other setup today was GWRE. GWRE was also our earning play. So let's look at GWRE. GWRE EPS beat bearish bias if MTF breaks. So I already gave this plan that bearish bias if MTF breaks down 199, 198, resistance is 250. You can see that GRA MTF short right at the open breaks the MTF. You take the short, and it faded all day to 173. So the pivots I gave on GWRE was pretty clear. 199, 200. Its 200 psychological level is also pretty good, but you can take the short under the MTF. It faded from that 190 level, 188 all the way to 173 level. So those are the setups that are bearish setups that you can take on short on. So GWRE was some of the options will not have weekly options, and they will not be liquid enough. GWRE was one of them. We can take a look at those options on GWRE. So this was 180 put for December. You see there's no volume, so it's always hard to trade illiquid options. As an option trader, you need to know what is a liquidity spread, because if you market order them, you will be paying $2 just in spread, and you will never be profitable in those lot of options. But regardless, you can see that even if illiquid options, even if you take one on a limit orders, that went from $2 to $8. You could easily make 300% on your lot of options on this short as well. Of course, I prefer shares shorting than puts on setups like GWRE, where the options are illiquid. Let's go to the next one. So next one we're going to look at is AFRM. AFRM was a pretty simple setup today. AFRM was MTF long. Let's see if we can find it in our day 2 sheet here. So let's see. So here you go. You can see my day 2 AFRM was here. The so this was again the very simple setup. When something is selling off huge previous day, it reclaims the clouds, reclaim the MTF clouds. It becomes a long setup, right? So that was the AFRM long. That was on the day 2s today. Just wanted to recap AMTF AFRM long, just to show you the power of how to just find the trend changes. Bearish under MTF, if you short from the 70s, you got a nice couple dollars, and if you're long over 70s, you not getting got a nice couple dollars. Let's go to the next one. So let's now look at our gamma trade on Tesla, which ended our Friday with crazy runners. A lot of options went like 1,000%, 600, 700, 800%. It was a beautiful day. So you see that whole day Tesla was consolidating up, down, up, down, up, down, right? But then it started to curl, and this was our 1 hour setup. I was on the voice. I had set up some price alerts. I said, watch if we break out, and then we're gonna gamma squeeze. Why we're gonna gamma squeeze, I will cover that in a minute. So let's see what the setup started to do. So setup started to break out, right? So setup started to break out. Let's look here, right here, sorry. So this was the setup. So that was the setup from few days back, but this was our Friday setup. So you see that how it's breaking out, similar to how it broke out on December 5th, right? And we can see that this was a setting up. It was all day doing up, down. But once it started to break out of this area, that's when I said, we're going to get a gamma squeeze. I will show you that. And here you go. You can see that, right? So we are breaking out. The first I sent a price alert when we broke out of this area, range break. This was a range break. And then this was the breakout, pre-market high breakout. So those are the two alerts I sent. I told everybody we can squeeze. Lotto scalps are okay, and the volume was huge. My Ripster candle volumes were showing 100, 200, 300% volume. I told us right away, at even before, at 1 hour before the market Tesla closed, that we are possible to gamma squeeze, right? And I kept telling everybody, put your roll in the Tesla as it goes higher, roll further into the options. 376 first breakout and then second breakout. Let's look at further guidance that I had in the community. So let's look at further. You see that as we started to break out, the chart that I just showed you, as we started to break out of this level, and as I was guiding everybody through the trade, I continuously stressed that keep some, do not close fully, roll into the next week's options, roll into the further lottos, because this was a 1 hour breakout squeeze. And I have been calling out the gamma squeeze, as you know. If you want to look at my timestamp here, when I called the gamma squeeze, it was 307, right? And at 304, I said we can squeeze, gamma squeeze, because I could see the options flow coming in. We'll look at that in a minute, but let's see. I told everybody 380 first target, then 385 second target. Log sum at 385, roll into the next week lottos with the profit. Roll into next week lottos with the profit, because this is the gamma squeeze. 400 is the target. I'm also holding 400 calls for next week. And you see, after hours we did squeeze to 395, because it was a really good breakout on the 1 hour chart and on the daily chart, right? So let's see how I was so confident about the gamma squeeze, that I told everybody just hold. Or you see my guidance even when I was mentioning on the Twitter, on X, that why was the confident? Because few things: the volume, the option flow. Those were the two reasons why we were so confident. And I did say that we have, if I look at 400 magnet, keep the runners, 400 magnet, and we are almost close to the 400s the after hour. So let's see, what was it. If you look at the volume, right, I can go back in the time, I can show you. So if you want to look at the volume, see how much volume we are going here, 210% volume. If I run it for you, then I can show you. So you watch how much the volume is changing. look at 300, 270%, right? The volume 225%, average candle 214%, 2 million candle, right? So the continuously the volume is increasing, and that tells me we're going to squeeze more. 300% volume candle, 400% volume candle, and we even met our 390 target. So you see that I just replayed for you how much the volume was coming in. Not only that, if you want to look at the flow that we were catching here, let me show you here in a minute here, that what we were looking on Tesla here, because at the end of the day, the amount of insane call flow that started to come in. Let's look at that. You will see that what I mean by that, and we'll take a look at why the gamma squeeze happened. You see that. Okay, so let's just look at this, right? So let's just make it a bigger here. So you look at that, right? So what do you see? If maybe I can make it bigger, more bigger here. So what do you see? You see the calls: 380 calls, 78,000, 375 calls, 590,000, 375 calls, 100 to 1,000, and the volume is consistently going over the open interest. That means the options market makers are selling the calls. They are net negative short, and as the stock goes higher, the lotos are going higher. They need to cover, they need to hedge their position, so they buy the stock, and they buy the stock, they bring more squeeze, and that brings more lotto option buyers, and that more lotto options buyers puts more short on the option market makers, and they have to hedge more, right? So when this was a Friday. If this was some other day, I would not have so confident about the short and the gamma squeeze, but since it was a Friday, the lotto options were just pennies, 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents amount of loss. If let's say you were short on 385 lotto and you are a market maker, and amount of, if you have $1 million worth short, you are literally tens and twenties of $1 million worth of net negative on that short position, because your options did not if your option is expiring the money, because the reason it was 3 cents, this 385 lottos, because there was no chance that the Tesla would cross over 385. 385 lottos had no chance that Tesla would, so there was no chance that Tesla would close over 385, right? So that's why it was 3 cents. But so the 385 lotto had no chance. So that's why it was a 3 cents. Imagine you are short on that 3 cents worth, like let's say 1 million share, 1 million worth of options that you have sold. And when they start to push over $1, you are, or $3, you're literally 10 million down on your options that you're sold, and you are a market maker and you have to hedge that position. So that's why the gamma squeeze occurs, right? You are net short through the options and you have to hedge your position. You come in, buy the stock pushes more buyers come in, more the lotos being bought as we close, more the gamma squeeze, because nobody's expecting that end of the day 30, 40, 50 minutes, right? You still see the effect of gamma squeeze after hours as well. So that's why I was so confident. That's why I told everyone in the community, as you see, and you see this call flow, you have to watch the call flow into the close. You have to see it's more than open AI, sorry, it's the volume is much more than open interest. And you see it's all call. There's literally no puts right now happening there at the close. So all these things we watch in the community, we are on top of it. We have so many scanners, news bots, so we can continuously track what's going on. That's why how I guided my community, and we literally the community just killed it. End of the day, multiple 100% trades, and everybody went in home pretty confident. But important thing is that not about the money, to understand these gamma squeezes, because you can literally take $1,000 and turn into $10,000, or it literally risk $200-300 turn into $300-400 and risking, and just let it run. I made sure that nobody is closing in my community. Even if you were closing, I made sure you were rolling, right? You were rolling into the next week's call, right? You were rolling into the next week's call. Whatever call options, I don't really care, right? Because I had a next week's 400 that went for me like 50%, right? Almost from $9 to $14 or $8. So you continuously roll further, into the next options to maximize your profits. When you know that there's a gamma squeeze happening, and which I've been talking about, even I mentioned on Twitter that it's a gamma. See my stress on the gamma, because I know how much the flow coming in, and option market makers are basically stuck, right? So that was it, guys. You can see the timestamp guidance step by step. A lot of my guidance was on the voice. No hindsight. I teach you these things so that you guys can. Arsalan took his Lotto 1000%. So these are the things you need to learn to be a consistent active day trader, options traders, or a stock trader. So learn these setups. So next time there's a gamma squeeze, you are not left behind. Watch the technical setup, watch the flow, watch the time. Keep eyes on the volume, and you will for sure nail these gamma squeeze setups. Thank you so much. Take care. See you next week.